This Algebra 1 spring test is actually not test 1, it's test 3, everybody, because week number 3. Lesson 1.1 to 5.5. First question we have asks, which graph shows the best trend line for the following data? Trend lines are the line that passes through the data that is as close to all of them at the same time as possible. So you have to look at the data and you got to look at see which one is as close to all of them. If you look uh, at A, notice it's real close to that 1 point, but it's far away from all the rest of them. If you look at B, it's close to this 1 point, but it's far away from all the rest of them. On D, it's not really close to any of the points. It's above all of the points. The only one, or the one that is the best, the line of best fit, the one that goes through all of them as close as possible to all of them, is C up here. This is your best line of best fit right here, the one that's closest to all of them. And again, if the line wasn't there and the question was asked, is it a positive or a negative correlation or no correlation, what would you say for that? It'd be a positive correlation. I mean, if it shows a positive trend, it's positive. Going uphill, if it's going downhill, it's negative. Okay, we introduced a new form of an equation this week called point-slope form. Before this, we only had slope-intercept form. Each of these two equations, number 2 and number 3, are point-slope form. It tells you to graph these equations. It's called point-slope form for a reason, because it shows you a point and it shows you a slope. The slope is the easier of the two to see. And the reason I said it's the easier to see is because it's not the opposite sign. So your point slope form is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. This is your m value right here, slope. There's no number there. So you know that your slope for this case would be -1. There's a 1 if it's nothing shown. Remember, slopes are rise over run. There's an up and down over a left and right. If there's no fraction, then your slope is over 1. You take that integer number and put it over 1. Now that gives us a movement just like it did for slope-intercept form. It tells us rise over run or to go up and down over left and right. The other part of point slope is the point. This is harder to see only because these values, the y value, the one that's next to y, is the opposite of what it says. It says +2, so it's the opposite. That's going to be -2. And the x value is also the opposite of what it shows next to x. It shows -4. The x value is +4. So your point is 4, -2, and your slope is -1, 1. That is enough information to graph the equation. Unlike beginning with slope-intercept form, we began on the y-axis where it crossed through. We don't begin with that when you're doing point-slope form. You begin at the point itself, 4, -2. 4 tells you to go to 4, -2 tells you to go down to 2. That's where your first point is, at 4, -2. Your slope is -1, +1. This tells you to go down 1 and go to the right 1. So down 1 and to the right 1 from that point 4, -2 would be right there. Not from the origin, not from the y-intercept, from that point right there. And once you have 2 points, just like before, you can draw a straight line through those 2 points. So draw yourself a straight line through them. And it'll look something like this. The other equation is also in point slope form. The slope on this one is easier to see because it's not an unseen 1. There's an m value right here. M's value is -3/5. You do not change the sign for that one. That is your slope value. M is -3/5. That tells you to go down 3 and to the right 5. Your point, your x value, and your y value are the opposites of what's shown. This is your x sub 1 value right here. It shows -3. So it's +3. This is your y sub 1 value right here. It shows positive 2. Therefore, it's negative 2. So the point that you're going to begin at, since this is point slope form, is 3, negative 2. So it'll be right there. Again, your slope is negative 3 over 5. Tells us to go down 3 and to the right 5. Down 3 from that point, 1, 2, 3. To the right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is your second point. Once you have 2 points, again, just like a minute ago, we can draw our straight line through those 2. And that's what your equation should look like. Point slope form, graphing with point slope form. 4 and 5 tell you to write an equation in point slope form through the given point with the given slope. The easiest way to write point slope form, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Write it just like that and fill in the values. M is the easiest one to start with. It goes right here. I say it's the easiest one to start with because it is 3/5. So right here is where you put 3/5. You do not change the sign. Y sub 1 goes right here. It's the opposite of what this y says right here, negative 6. So it's positive 6. X sub 1 goes right here. It's the opposite of what this x says. It says 4. We put negative 4. That is point slope form. Y plus 6 equals 3/5 times x minus 4. We do the same thing for number 5. Put yourself y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. M's value then is right here, negative 5 over 4. Y's value is the opposite to put y sub 1 of this, negative 3. We put positive 3. X's value is the opposite, it goes here, of this. It says negative 7. We put positive 7. Point slope form, y plus 3 equals negative 5 over 4 times x plus 7. Both of those are point slope form. Both of those are the new things from this week. Number 6 says a line passes through 1, negative 5 and negative 3, 7. Write an equation for the line in point slope form. We have 2 points. We do not have a slope given to us. Therefore, we need to find the slope. If you need the slope formula, it is the change of y, so the difference, y sub 1 minus y sub 2, over the change of x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So if you need to label those, this is x and this is y. Remember, alphabetically, x comes before y. Same thing with this one. This one's x and this is y. This is point number 1. This is point number 2. You simply plug in the numbers. So in place of y sub 2, we'll plug in 7. Minus, in place of y sub 1, we'll plug in negative 5. Remember, minus and negative tells you to add. Over x sub 2, in place of that, we'll plug in negative 3 minus x sub 1. The last thing we'll plug in 1. So we have 7 minus the negative 5 means plus 5, which is 12. And negative 3 minus 1. Those are the same signs. So you add 3 plus 1 and you get 4. And you keep the common sign negative. If you need to, look at it on a number line. Therefore, your slope is 12 divided by negative 4. Your slope for this then is negative 3. This is the slope for this equation. So that was finding the slope. Again, there's quicker ways to do the slope. That's the most foolproof method if you get stuck. Use the slope formula. Write an equation for the line in point slope form. Just like we did for 4 and 5, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. If we use our first point, 1, negative 5, and negative 3 for our m, in place of m, right here, we'll plug in negative 3. In place of y, Right here, we'll plug in the opposite of negative 5, which is positive 5. In place of x sub 1, we'll put in the opposite of positive 1, which is negative 1. This then is point slope form. Y plus 5 equals negative 3 times x minus 1. The second part tells you to rewrite it in slope-intercept form. You know that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. You need to move it. In order to move it, you have to simplify each side. Negative 3 is right next to x minus 1, so you need to distribute it. If you multiply negative 3 times x, you get negative 3x. If you multiply it times negative 1, a negative times a negative is a positive 3. So you have something that says y plus 5 equals negative 3x plus 3. That is not slope-intercept form because y is not isolated. You need something to say y equals mx plus b. The very last thing we have to do is get y by itself by undoing plus 5. It says plus 5, so you subtract it. If you subtract it on the left, you have to do the same on the right. Y then is equal to negative 3x. Positive 3 minus 5 is negative 2. This now says y equals mx plus b, and that satisfies what it asks you for to rewrite it in slope-intercept form. Number 7 tells you a line passes through negative 1, 6 and 7, 9. Write it in point slope form. The second part tells you to rewrite it in standard form. I'm going to change that from the study guide. We haven't gotten the standard form yet. But write it in point slope form. Again, you need to find the slope. We'll find the slope a little quicker on this one. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1. 9 minus 6, that's 3. X sub 2 minus x sub 1. 7 minus a negative 1 is plus a positive 1. 7 plus 1 is 8. There is your slope. A little bit quicker than we did for number 6. But again, it tells you to write it in point slope form. So we use that first point, 1, negative 1, positive 6. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And we'll plug in the values that we need. M is going to go first because it's the same as what we just got, 3/8. The other two, x sub 1 and y sub 1, are the opposites of what it shows, negative 1 and 6 respectively. Y's value, y sub 1 goes here. It says positive 6, so we put negative 6. X sub 1's value goes here. It says negative 1, so we'll put positive 1. This is point slope form. This is what it asks you to do first. Write it in point slope form. The next part asks you to rewrite it in standard form. Again, our next lesson is standard form. We're going to change this, and we are going to rewrite it in slope-intercept because that's one that we are familiar with doing. Slope-intercept form. So we want y equals mx plus b. In order to create y equals mx plus b, you have to distribute 3/8 times x and 3/8 times 1. Now, this causes a little bit of a problem, not because 3/8 x is hard to deal with, but 3/8 when you add 6 to it is going to give us a little issue. So one alternative we have is to eliminate the fact that it says divide by 8. Remember, we can undo divide by 8 by multiplying every term by 8. That multiplies by 8. This can multiply by 8, and this can multiply by 8. So 8 times y is going to be 8y. Negative 6 times 8 is negative 48. And equals, this will cancel out that. So we have 3 times x plus 1. So we have larger numbers, 8y and negative 48. But we got rid of fractions. Not quite the slope-intercept form, though. 3 needs to distribute now. Times x is 3x times 1 is plus 3. So we now have 8y minus 48 is equal to 3x. We want to undo. We got to undo 2 steps now. We need to get y equals mx plus b. We need to get 8y by itself by undoing 48 by adding it. You add it to the left, add it to the right, plus 48. 48 plus 3 is going to be 51. And it'll be positive. We still have 3x there, and we still have equals 8y on the left. Undo 8 times something by dividing by 8. If you divide it on the left, divide it by everything on the right. 3 over 8x. And in 51 divided by 8, there's no number that they have in common. So that will be plus 51 over 8. This is, as bad looking of an equation as that then is slope-intercept form. Y equals 3/8 x plus 51 over 8. And again, on our next lesson, we'll introduce standard form to you. Standard form is easier. It is the least useful out of all three of the forms of an equation, though. Slope-intercept form is the most, followed by point slope. There are a few uses for standard form, not a whole lot of uses for standard form. Are the graphs of the lines parallel? You know parallel lines have the same slope. So you're looking for the same m value. M's value of the first equation, y equals mx plus b, is -1. You can see it right away. You can see its m value is -1. The second equation, you cannot see the slope right away. You need to move the equation in order to do so. So we wanted to say y equals mx plus b. You move over -5x by adding it to both sides. -5y is left on the left. You now have positive 5x. You don't need to write positive 5x, just 5x. And you have -10. In order to get y by itself again, you need to undo, multiply by -5 by dividing by -5. Do it to this and this. 5 divided by -5 is -1x. -10 divided by -5 and negative divided by negative is a positive. This now says y equals mx plus b. You can see its m value then is -1. When you compare the m values or the slopes of both equations, you can see they're the same number. Since they are the same number, it asks, are the graphs parallel? Yes, they are. And when it tells you to explain, your explanation is they have the same slopes. That is the only thing that makes equations parallel. Same slopes. Again, number 9, you can see the slope of the first equation, y equals mx plus b. You can see its m value is 6. You cannot see the slope of the second equation. You have to move it in order to see it. If we take the second equation and get y equals by itself, we need to undo minus 32x by adding 32x. Remember, you undo order of operations backwards. If you add it to the left, add it to the right. So what that leaves us is 4y on the left equals, we put our x term first, positive 32x minus 128. Remember, we can't subtract or we can't combine 128 and 32x because they're not like terms. Undo 4 times something by dividing by 4. If you do it to the left, do it by everything on the right, that and this. 32 divided by 4 is 8x. And negative 128 divided by 4. 4 goes into -12, -3 times, and into 8 twice. So now we have y equals mx plus b. You can see what the slope is of the second equation. When you compare it to the slope of the first equation, 6, it is not the same number. So again, are the lines parallel? No. The explanation being different slopes. And we'll pick up with the rest of the study guide on the next part.